Hello, it's another bumper Prem review because we're going to have to do double weeks, and the reason for that is obviously I've been super busy sort of rejigging my life into some semblance of normality. Basically, I sort of quit my job and I've gone completely independent and opened up a Substack and got a Patreon now. And so if you like this type of content, you might want to check it out. It's in the description. The interesting thing about the Substack, funnily enough, is it's got an archive of everything I've ever written. I'm adding to it all the time. I've got like lots. It goes back to like 2005. And loads of sports writing in there. You can see some of my very early contentious opinions. I was annoying sports fans long before I was annoying esports fans. So you can go and check that out if you wish. But anyway, look, I won't waste time talking about that because there's too much to talk about in the Football League itself. Let's just start with Everton versus Aston Villa. And then this, of course, is in the game. Just to remind everybody, this is back in February. We're doing 2 weeks, so we're going to get the week starting 25th of February out of the way first. I've talked a lot about the positives that Dyche is going to bring to Everton. And since then, you know, he's had some good results. They got out of the relegation zone temporarily. And then they have results like this, where I think Aston Villa are obviously much improved under Emery. There's no two ways about that. But at the end of the day, Everton should be giving Villa a better game than this. And I feel the real problem still with Everton is they can execute a game plan pretty well. That's how it's going to be under Dyche. He's going to have them organised. But there's a little bit of fight lacking in the team. It's got to be said. There's a lot of people who don't deserve to wear the Everton shirt. And on top of that, I've got to say, once they go a goal behind, they do not seem to have the tenacity to get back into a game. Now, Sean Dyche hasn't been there long enough for you to put that on him, but I would probably say, like, it's telling to me that the players that were the best for Everton in this game were Pickford. I'm not a Pickford fan, but I've got to say some of his performances lately have been impressive just in terms of shot stopping and, you know, how many goals Everton could have shipped if he wasn't making some world-class saves. I'll still say he's a bit flappy hands for me, and I think the pathetic screaming at your own back four every time they have a shot on goal and punching the turf and all that. He's not a Richard Lewis player, let's put it that way. I don't think he's got the head for it. But, you know, you only get to do that if you're like Schmeichel, Peter, you know, like, not Casper. You only get to do that if you are a truly great God-tier goalkeeper, I think. There's rumours that Pickford might be going to Man United end of the season, and just on the merits of shot stopping and everything, I think, sure. I think he's put in some stellar performances for Everton lately, but ultimately, you know, if your goalkeepers you stand out, you have got problems. I'll add as well Tarkowski, Coleman, Cody. They've all had solid games. They had a solid game here against Villa, but the problem you've got is there was no bite in the midfield. I've talked about Maupay being one of the biggest busts in Premier League history. They're toothless in attack, and there's no bite in midfield. Like Iwobi's form, like Iwobi and Onana should be good enough. But Iwobi and Onana they're not quite there yet in terms of being able to take over a game and dominate. And Villa took advantage of that. I get lots of messages from Fulham fans and Villa fans saying, you never talk about our teams. I mean, listen, okay, so let's do it. Let's talk about Villa and sort of their turnaround as they've climbed up the table. Under Gerrard, they looked fucking hapless, didn't they? We all know it. That Gerrard is another one of those coaches who can command inspiration. He's one of the greatest English players of all time. But can he execute a tactical game plan? Can he change things with a substitution when the chips are down? No, like he showed he didn't have the tactical nous for it. And Villa are much, much better. I've got to say there's been a very big turnaround in terms of just overall performance. Like Ollie Watkins is a really good informed striker right now and is going to get back in and around the England team if he keeps it up. You know, scoring goals with confidence. You know, he's not afraid to take them first time. He's making really good runs. You know, you think about what a fucking mess offside is right now in the fucking Premier League where nobody knows what to do anymore. Can I go early or is that bad? If I lean forward, does it come off my chest? Well, no, not if you play for Liverpool or Man United. It's all over the place right now, and yet somehow in this uncertain, you know, world where defenders are getting lots of fucking luck when it comes to VAR, apart from the atrocity that happened at Old Trafford. Watkins is really so good at intelligently running into space. The problem always was when he got the ball after making those runs, he'd fudge it, he'd take it wide, he wouldn't understand how to be direct and how to get into a shooting position that gives you more of the goal to aim at. And now he's doing that regularly, and he's precise. I mean, he has been really, really good this second half of the season for Villa, and as we hit into these last few games, he's just been outstanding for me. Mings has brought his form back. I think probably one of the biggest surprises for me has been watching, I always knew Buendia was going to be good. I've talked about him, obviously he got a goal here, but Buendia, I think, has just been one of Villa's standouts attacking wise, and obviously as well, and I've made jokes about him before, but Douglas Luiz looked like a nothing player under Gerrard, but he's had some really big games, and so this Villa side, I think they're going to be overshadowed by the likes of Brighton and Brentford. I think they just have better squads overall, and they obviously didn't get themselves into all sorts of trouble at the start of the season. But I've got to say, I think Villa have been transformative, and because they're some of the biggest wastrels in Europe, they'll spend money. You can bet on that. And so it's going to be interesting to see what Emery gets to do next season. But Villa are fine. Mid-table mediocrity, that's a very good place to be, especially in the absolute bloodbath happening down at the bottom of the table. Now, speaking of that, this was the same issue we had Southampton losing to Leeds. Now, Leeds are in legitimate trouble. Even though they've got rid of Jesse Marsh, or Yank Lampard, as people are calling him, they haven't seen that appreciable bump other than that draw with United. Them winning here against Southampton, it's crazy how tight it is down there because of the way the results are going. To put it into context, Southampton lost again, which brought Leeds back out on 22 points, Everton on 21, Bournemouth are on 21, and this is this week, obviously, and Southampton are on 18. So think about how woeful Southampton have been all season, and yet they're still 2 wins and a couple of freak results out of jumping out of the relegation zone altogether. Now, I've got to say it, I'm utterly convinced Southampton are down now. I didn't have them in my original prediction, but they show me absolutely nothing. There's huffing, there's puffing, there's running, there's no clinical, incisive ability to finish. And Leeds dominated Southampton in this game. I watched this one. I've sort of got a soft spot for Leeds all of a sudden. Obviously, I remember them when they were in the Champions League way back when. I always had a bit of a soft spot for Leeds. Produced some good players down the years, and had many fine nights out in Kirkstall when I was a youngster. But Southampton were just woeful in this. 39% possession, in a relegation dogfight, 2 shots on target. The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for Southampton, just to quote Scott Steiner. This was Leeds looking good again. This is everyone who was you want to performed. Firpo out of nowhere with a man of the match performance, but the usual names, your Adams is the steal. Somerville's looked really good up front. Gnonto, well, up front on the wide position. Gnonto. It's interesting because Leeds were a pretty one-dimensional team not that long ago, I felt even at times under Jesse Marsh, where it just seemed to be so much about Bamford's goals. And Bamford actually is sort of an underperforming factor right now since he's come back from his injury. Hasn't looked like the same player, and obviously might be out of favour with the dressing room. I don't know how they took his comments about Jesse Marsh. I don't know how well Jesse Marsh was liked, but I imagine with a strong American contingent, maybe Bamford put his foot in it a bit. But he's looked out of sorts these last few games, and it's definitely a factor because they need to get him scoring with regularity again. Southampton, though, same old story. The drop-off in quality after Ward-Prowse is very marked. They have a lot of players that they have raw tools, they have athleticism, they have pace. Even sometimes, there is some desire there from some of the players. They're chasing things down, they're running around. But the bottom line is it's the lack of quality. When you're in a relegation dogfight, you're going to get a handful of chances, and you've got to take those chances. You've got to fucking bury them, or you're dead. You're dead in the water. It's you might get 2 chances in a game. If you score 1, you're going to be up there where Forest is. Forest aren't playing good football. be under no illusions. Forest aren't dominating games. They've just got one player who's just actually stepping the fuck up and basically lifting them. Brendan Johnson had it again the other day. Talk about that in a bit. They're really going to regret firing Hassan Huttel, because he was a guy who understood player development. He was I criticised him in the past. I said he's buying in players with no Premier League or top flight experience and looking to develop them. And the Premier League is a brutal ground for that. But I believe he had a plan, and I believe that he could have developed some of these players. You have the disastrous Nathan Jones appointment, and now we're holding on, just hoping for a miracle to the end of the season. Many of these players are not going to tough it out in the Championship. There's no way, especially players that they might have just bought might want to be away. It's a chance to play in the Prem, but nobody wants to play in the Championship. So they've got problems. Some players just never really developed to the promise that they showed initially. Like, I want to say Walker Peters is an example of that for me. But at the end of the day, Southampton have got all sorts of problems down there. They've got real problems. Then we also this week found out a little bit about the steal of Arsenal. People thought they're going to wobble it, they're going to bottle it. City are coming for them, they're breathing down their necks. What can Arsenal do? And they had to go away to Leicester. It was a wild one. I've got to be straight with you. This could have gone bad. Like, Leicester had a couple of chances right at the start of the game, and you have to wonder how many opportunities are Arsenal going to be afforded to come back in these games where they're going behind. They're definitely feeling it. They're feeling a little bit fatigued. Nketiah has done a great standing job, but man, they would love Jesus as a hold-up man right now. Like, Gabriel Jesus has been so missed. It's incredible what they've done without him, considering how good he was. But yeah, you have to feel like they're going to need him back, and they need him fresh. You have to hope he's fresh, This one was 1-0. It was razor thin. In the end, it came down to a goal from Martinelli with an assist from Trossard. Trossard has been a legit signing for Arsenal. And put it this way, I legitimately believe, and here you go, it's the first hot take of the show. I legitimately believe if Arsenal hadn't signed Trossard, they wouldn't be turning some of these games around. He's been committed, he's been direct, he's had end product, and a lot of people were a bit like, that's not even the Brighton player you originally wanted, because loads of people thought they were going to get Caicedo. But this is a good signing. This has actually worked out for Arsenal very, very well. And they had a thin squad, and we all know that. And they were 2 injuries away from total disaster. And they managed to basically only get one. And bringing Trossard in has given that this team a shot in the arm. He is looking like a guy who is fucking up for it. And Arsenal together with each of these games that they're getting, you can see the belief. We don't have to bottle this. We don't have to. Like, we are masters of our own destiny. We can chase down things and get lucky goals. Saka is like, he's been one of the players of the season. I legitimately mean that. Like, he will be up there for sure come the end when the awards are being handed out. I've seen him win so many games single-handedly for Arsenal, really. And when that's not to be disparaging about a fantastic Arsenal team. But if Saka's up for it, when Saka plays, Arsenal win. It's as simple as that. Like, the guy is just God tier. And this Arsenal team, these are the types of games you think, fucking hell, what if they lose here? Leicester were just coming off losing to United 3-0. Brendan Rodgers is wanting to get a reaction. Here comes Arsenal. Everyone's talking about United being in the title fight and what happens if a few people lose. This is the kind of 1-0 result that wins your titles. Make no mistake about it. Big win for Arsenal. Martinelli, absolutely superb. Remember, he's a £6 million signing. The other games from this week worth talking about, we don't need to talk about City dominating Bournemouth. I'm not doing a 0-0 draw between Liverpool and Palace. I'm not covering the League Cup, but yeah, like I said, we lost. Fuck that. So yeah, we can sort of like jump ahead, because obviously it was the FA Cup week. All right, go on then. I'll talk about West Ham beating Forest 4-0. West Ham United beat Forest. They really tuned them up. And I just want to point out, I said if you start Ings as the tip of the spear, you're going to do better, West Ham. And they did, and Ings got 2 goals. This game was on like a knife's edge for a long period of time, till about 70 minutes into it. And West Ham's quality told in the end. Ings got 2 poachers goals. It's a disgrace that West Ham are struggling this much, and I don't know what Moyes has to do to lose a job. 4-0, every time you think West Ham are going to fucking build on something, they never do. But this was as good as West Ham have looked all season, and it's only against Forest. And as I said, I don't put any stock in what Forest does. Don't think they're as good a team as their table placement belies. But yeah, Ings was good. Rice, got a great goal and had a great game. But Forest still dominated possession. They just don't create chances. I think overall, like, I'm not feeling Rice, but this was just really, it was a good performance. He bossed the midfield for the first time this season, and they were able to, win it out 4-0. But, like, look, at the end of the day, Forest just didn't create chances. That's what you expect. I suppose I should talk a little bit about Paqueta. I think it's pronounced, or Paqueta. I don't know if it's a hard U or a soft one. But anyway, he's been good since he's gotten to the team and added a little bit of sort of quality, which West Ham, for some reason, have lacked. Gotta say, I think their back four is very, very shaky. Just doesn't look good enough for the Premier League. But when you look at the rest of the names on the team sheet, you kind of feel like, yeah, these guys should be up there. They should be doing what Villa are doing. Talk about Forest for a bit, because I'm always down on Forest. They've just signed Shelvey. Voldemort's playing over there for them, which is sound. Good for him. He was never good enough in my eyes, but, he was a servant of the club, so fair enough. So you go get Harry Potter down in Nottingham. But anyway, they brought Shelvey in. He's aight. The only people worth talking about, and they're playing Chris Wood up front as a lone striker. I know he got a goal against City. Probably the only goal he's scoring this season. He's dog shit. I seriously question anyone's wisdom at signing that player. Haven't seen him up front and personal for Newcastle. But Gibbs White, one of the things I said right at the start of the season, I said I think they massively overpaid for him. I still stand by that. I think that was English tax all the way. But Gibbs White has had some really stellar performances. Basically, between Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson, Forest have been able to punch well above their weight and way better than the football that they're playing. I still think they're getting sucked into the relegation dogfight, but the problem you've got is with too many people playing too poorly right now, I think Forest might just miss out on it, like fourth from bottom or something is the vibe I'm getting. But they're definitely going to get sucked into it. I'm 100% on it. I can feel it in my bones, my old bones. But anyway, that was an absolute tune-in. For me, it's been coming for a while. Like, West Ham have threatened to do this, and Forest have threatened to lose. So, it was like the perfect marriage of teams. Let's go to the 1st of March, where we had Everton taking on Arsenal again. And you go, well, Everton are on the road, but Everton beat them before, and Arsenal going to be nervous. Is Everton and Dyche going to be Arsenal's kryptonite in the same way Sam Allardyce was the great Wenger's team kryptonite? Has he got them figured out? Well, nah, not on this showing. Like, it was fucking unbelievable. Arsenal, from the start, just dominated the game. Saka, unplayable for Everton. They don't have the personnel to be able to deal with someone like Saka. I mean, even in the game they won at Goodison, they started relying on a set piece, and Arsenal had chances. Don't be under any illusions. But this was just ridiculous. I mean, that midfield that Arsenal have is just so good. And I say midfield, obviously, we're talking Odegaard and Martinelli and Saka kind of there with a lone striker, but Partey as well. It's so good, it's so well constructed that when it gets into a game and they're doing all these little interplay and just playing off each other with the tiki-taka style, it's, there's nothing you can do. You need a massive character in there to fucking stick one on them and put it about. You need a Roy Keane who's going to give you no time. You need a Paul Scholes who's just going to fucking tackle you, pick your pocket, and spray the ball 60 fucking yards. This is the only way you can play against this midfield. It's one of the most balanced and well constructed and effective midfields I've seen in the modern era of the Premier League. Like, no exaggeration. Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, just in harmony, attacking football. It's what makes Arsenal tick. And in retrospect, probably thinking about it, it was more imperative that actually, Saka didn't get injured, or Martinelli didn't get injured, or Odegaard didn't get injured, or Partey didn't get injured over a striker. You cannot do without them. And, solid defence. Credit to Zinchenko and all the guys. And obviously, Granit, when he's kind of doing his defensive duties and putting it about, not in defence, but, obviously plays defensive style. But this was just unreal. Like, this was 4-0. Could have been way, way more. And for me, again, another one of those banana skin games that Arsenal have come through with flying colours. And so now, they're 5 points ahead of City at this point, all level. In terms of games played, this is a title race that's going to come down to like one or two games, some head-to-head games. United, obviously, I said last week. I fucking jinxed it that they were going to creep back into it, but we'll talk about that. I mean, look, the reality is Arsenal are way above where they should be, 100%, and they keep doing it. They keep adding to it. Now, does this matter for Everton? Not for me. I don't think Everton are in as much trouble as a 4-0 against Arsenal would belie. That it would, you would be watching that going, yeah, well, Everton are down. Arsenal fans were chanting to them. They were saying, you're going down, you're going down. For me, there's still enough there. I still believe in Dyche. I still believe in the Brexit ball project. He's somebody that's just not going to yield. And it's going to be okay. They're going to just get over the line this season, I believe, now that he's there. They were still really good on set pieces. You look at the chances they had. They still had an equal number. So from 27% possession Everton had the same number of shots on target as Arsenal. And they only had one corner. It wasn't like it was coming from just corners but they were great on set pieces, good on free kicks. There was a lot of niggle in the midfield where people were really sticking it on each other. I think Everton had like 15 fouls in this game or something. There was a lot of fouls going on. Yeah, crazy stuff. And, for me, Everton don't need to win these games. They need to beat, like, Leeds. They need to beat Southampton. They need to beat West Ham. They're all capable of doing that still with Dyche's vision for the team. So I'm not worried yet, but we'll see at the end of the season. So Liverpool took on Wolves, and as I said, they've had a resurgence lately, Liverpool. They're climbing up the table, 6 points off the top 4 with this win against Wolves. And listen, I don't think Liverpool are back, which is funny considering the result that you all know is coming that we're going to talk about in a bit. I still think they've got a ton of problems. I still think their midfield is shocking. But this was just one of those games where it was just like the spine of the Liverpool team did enough, and so you ended up with a fantastic performance from Van Dijk. Obviously not just about the goal, but so good in defence and actually good at playing it out of defence, which was obviously a huge part of Liverpool's style, the pressing style, but they obviously played out from the back as well. He was doing that in a way that Wolverhampton just couldn't get to. They couldn't close down. They were trying to press and trying to pressure, but basically the distribution was so good and Liverpool was so patient and just picked them apart. But on top of that, Núñez up front, great game from him. Did so much to relieve the pressure on the midfield. Basically, every time he got the ball, he did something positive with it. Every time he, was making runs, he was pulling people out of position, just creating enough space for the midfield to get some respite. Tsimikas, great performance from him too, actually. I don't even think I've said that all season. But Wolves just couldn't do anything. And it wasn't like for want of trying. I mean, I thought Neves played well. I mean, he's like just obviously the star of the team. But I thought Neves had some really like bright spots, and it wasn't all Liverpool's way, but I mean, it was just like enough that you could see the clear quality in Liverpool and a bit more belief coming back into it. Finally actually have an end product in terms of shots on target and, the XG people that have been mocking Liverpool down the seasons. This was a game where with only like marginally above 55% possession, they made a lot of opportunities and actually had shots on target for a change. So you do all of that, it's like, okay, this is a functional Liverpool team again, but it ain't. It isn't. It's still realistically at Anfield, you beat Wolves, don't you, if you're Liverpool? You should. Wolves are still probably, from 13th down, Wolves are probably like, one of the better teams down there and one of the form teams, but and even a dysfunctional Liverpool team should, eat their lunch. Now, I do feel like Wolves have been, under Lopetegui, have been really transformative. I know he was a bit despondent in the post-match interview after this. He was sort of saying, like, it's hard to be positive. And I'm like, listen, there's plenty of positives in your team. I think you've actually got a really solid squad. It's just lacking a bit of cutting edge, and if they can hold on to Neves, which I think is like near impossible by the end of the season, but there is a chance of a really solid rebuild job at Wolves for me. But this is just one of those games where it's like Liverpool have had the dip, they've hit rock bottom. Speculation about Klopp going, talks of new ownership, all this distraction, people coming back from the World Cup not llooking right. I mean, Henderson's just a ghost now. Like, do you remember Henderson? Like, he's like fucking should be in a Shakespearean play talking to some fucker. Like, he's gone. Like, he's just a shadow of himself. So I'm still not vibing with Liverpool, but it looks like at least they're capable of winning the games that they were losing like a month ago, and that bodes well for them maybe getting into it. I still can't imagine Tottenham, Newcastle. Can't imagine they're going to drop the ball so badly that they can't finish above them. But who knows? Because obviously, when we get to the 7-0, we'll talk about the Liverpool momentum, let's say. A terrible, overused word in sports. So we get to Saturday, 4th of March. City beat United. Again, we don't need to reflect on it, do we? We just don't need to reflect. I'll just say this. This is just a general topic about Newcastle United. The bottom line is, we overperformed for a long time, and it was relying on career peak form from individuals, like Almiron and St. Maximin. No, all of that, right? And this is the reality check. This is the market correction for Newcastle United. Botman was massively overperforming too. Our defence was massively overperforming. Basically, at one point, we had the best defence in Europe. That's mental. Like, that's so and then obviously the chickens have come home to roost, and the reality is that the Newcastle United squad isn't that great, and it isn't that deep. And so for me, I think if we can hold on and finish 6th, I'm very happy with the season. 6th in the cup final from where we were with Steve Bruce is like a fucking glass of ice water in the desert. Like, believe me. And then we're going to make some signings with our fucking blood money and probably, be genuinely in a top 4 challenge next season. The bottom line is that we were never really up for a Champions League spot for me. Never. I think Eddie Howe's done a great job. If he'd got us top 4 and a trophy, he's manager of the year. Unfortunately, it's a bridge too far. He's only human, he's even though as good as we've been. And I just feel, at the end of the day, losing to City now is probably part of the course of where things are. I think we'll lose a couple more times this season. I think there are teams that, for me, were always better than us. We were just ahead of them in the table. The big one this week, again, is, of course, talking about the Arsenal bottle job that everyone said was definitely coming. Bournemouth went to the Highbury Library, and they scored within the first, 10 seconds? One of the quickest goals ever scored in Premier League history. They fucking just did it with their first attack. Super embarrassing for Arsenal. After that, Arsenal had a real sustained period of possession, as they should. Didn't let their heads drop, got back into the game. But remember, this is the Premier League. Even the teams down at the bottom have players capable of individual moments of brilliance or can just pull a goal out their arse from nowhere. It's the best football league in the world. Just not where the refereeing's concerned, but whatever. We won't moan about that this week. And then Senesi, boom. Not Gary Senesi, the actor. Boom. It's 2-0. Bournemouth are winning. At Highbury. Arsenal are going to bottle the league. That's what everyone was saying. That was the talk of the town. Twitter was a nightmare. BBC hashtag a nightmare. Just the classic plastic Arsenal fans. He's got to go, Wobby, because you're 2-0 down to Bournemouth with 30 minutes to play. Heads were absolutely rolling, like saying, yeah, this has been coming. I saw one comment, it was like, this has been coming for a long time. All the signs were there at Leicester. Ridiculous. Anyway, this is what I mean. Like, when you are in that rich vein of form, anything can happen. I'll tell you a stat that will probably blow your mind. 80% possession for Arsenal. 31 shots. 17 corners. This is fucking domination. This is unreal. For them to be 2-0 down, it's freakish, So, anyway, yeah, they fucking get back at it. And they've got the players to do it. Partey, magnificent. We all know what he is. And then White gets a goal. Stage is set. I mean, that was super quick. From 2-0 down to 2-2, 20 minutes left to play. What's going to happen? And then just fortunately for Arsenal, there was a long stoppage. It was something like 8 minutes of added on time. And they've literally got a goal right at the death, mental. Reece Nelson got it. And just one of those where it's like, look, we don't like the way you did it, but we're fucking glad you did it. They managed to come back. Now, that to me is a great sign going into where we're at, in terms of the title race. That Arsenal are pulling back these games from the death, grinding out results, still arguably don't have their best squad available because they're doing it without Jesus. This is a great sign. You look at the run of games they've got coming up, they might be able to consolidate at the top. So this was one of those games. It just should never have been like this. But Arsenal were just so much better than Bournemouth. Don't let the fucking scoreline fool you. They are in light years ahead of where Bournemouth are. And I know their gaffer come out, O'Neill, and like obviously his honeymoon period is officially over because Bournemouth are going to get relegated for me. He'd come out and he said, like, oh, it's devastating. We were really right in that game. 31 fucking shots home. You were played off the park. Like, this is the most dominant performance by a Premier League team this season. And, yeah, you've lost by a goal, but, not because you fucking played well. Like, come on, don't be delusional. So, Arsenal still right in it. Great stuff. You've got to hand it to them. They're winning in interesting ways, Chelsea, we haven't talked about Chelsea. What a fucking embarrassment. They continue to be in the league. £600 million to be fucking 10th. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime in all of football. And the same problems persist. I know everyone's talking about Potter, and there's just two schools, isn't there? You just see Potter saying, oh, give him time. He's going to be good. Give him time. And then other people saying, he's got to go. He's got the worst time. It's like this team is a fucking mess. It is a patchwork nightmare. Basically, Chelsea have just played cheat mode on Football Manager, bought themselves all these like prestige midfielders for exorbitant amounts of money, and you don't have a team you can realistically construct that makes sense. There's no elegance to it. There's no balance to it. There's no finesse to it. There's no cutting edge to it. There's no striker, for fuck's sake, not a real one. And you can tell they're sloppy. It's been in the news twice that they've fucked up paperwork when they're doing these signings. This is rank incompetence, what's going on at Chelsea right now. And I don't care, by the way, if like 2 seasons from now, another manager finds the fucking secret sauce with the same players. This has just been an abomination of football, none of it makes any sense. The team that rolled out for this, by the way, the Chelsea-Leeds game, it's all over the place. It's like, I'm trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Because it's like this, with the players they've got, this can't be the best team. So it's a back three with Fofana, Koulibaly, and Badiashile, right? The midfield is Chilwell, Kovacic, Fernandes, and Loftus-Cheek, with Sterling playing in the wide right channel, João Felix playing in the wide left channel, and Kai Havertz still is the lone striker, a man with no striking instincts whatsoever. Like, he's not a striker. He's being made to play a striker because they didn't sign a striker, despite having more money than God himself. They refused to buy a striker. And Kai Havertz just doesn't know how to make runs. He doesn't know how to play in the box. He doesn't know how to be a striker because he's not a striker, and they're playing him as a striker. So officially, he's the worst striker in the league, probably. I've never seen anything like it. He gets the ball and he doesn't go straight. He goes wide. He drops deep, like insanely deep. It's just fucking mental. And I like to say, that team to me sounds like nothing. Like, you spent 600 million and that's the lineup. Like, oh my God. Maybe the back three's not that bad, but holy shit. Absolutely stinks, doesn't it? And, at the end of the day, they grind out a 1-0 result. They had possession, sure. Not a surprise. Not much, though. They didn't dominate Leeds. It was pretty even. And Leeds, similar problems, I guess, just lacking that cutting edge. We already talked about Bamford and how that went down. But Wesley Fofana got the goal. You're relying on your fucking defenders now to put it in the net. It was just a cross, Nothing fancy. And yes, credit to Meslier. It could have been, out of sight, but it won't be out of sight because the people who are taking the shots aren't clinical, because they're not strikers and they don't need to be clinical. And what Chelsea needs more than anything is a clinical striker. In fact, Meslier might have got player of the match, actually, because it was only 1-0. So I don't know. Now, look, Leeds can feel a bit aggrieved. I think certainly that Chelsea right now are vulnerable. And if you're one of those teams in the bottom half of the table that are looking to pick up points and you've got to go away from home and you've got to play the big boys, if you've got a result against Chelsea, you must be rubbing your hands. Fulham should show you all that. Like, they've fucking showed Chelsea up when they play them. So Leeds are going to come away from that disappointed, for sure. In fact, actually, yeah, this happened, didn't it? Meslier nearly got a fucking goal when he come up in the last minute, I think, from a corner. He got a header. Meslier could have got a draw. I mean, like, Chelsea, all that money to be grinding out 1-0s against Leeds. Like, what a fucking embarrassment, man. Chelsea fans, man. Chelsea fans sort of deserve it, don't they? But, they must be furious. They must be well frustrated with what's going on. Wolves, Tottenham. Wolves bounce back with a 1-0. Adama Traore. I mean, I'll just do this super quick. Conte is still sick, it seems, and not doing the interviews and stuff afterwards. He's been away all this time. So I don't know how much of a difference that makes with the staff that they've got on the books at Tottenham, but it's got to be said, Conte hasn't been there. It's been Christian Stellini has been doing all the interviews, and he's been on the touchline. I think Conte was a lot more ill than people made out. They said he was having his gallbladder removed. Obviously, listen, that can indicate a number of stuff. That could be like serious gallstones, but you can get all sorts of inflammation around there. It's obviously pancreas, liver area. It's like super scary. And I heard I think he came back for like one game, and he looked fucking ghostly white, and then he went away again. And it's like, you wonder if there's something more serious going on behind the scenes that like maybe nobody knows about or whatever. And obviously, look, football, yeah, it's X's and O's, but it's also people. And when your gaffer's not there and the team are a little bit apprehensive, there might be some players that like are specifically motivated by Conte or certain relationships or certain tactical observations, So Tottenham having a bit of a wobble right now. Still in the top 4, by the way, but Tottenham having a bit of a wobble right now. And yeah, it is Tottenham. If you're a mid-table side and you play Tottenham, you're up for it. You fancy it. They don't have that like aura of unbeatability. And Wolves needed a reaction, and I could tell Lopetegui was fucking fuming after losing to Liverpool. And so yeah, he got that reaction. Now listen, Traore has been one of those players. When Lopetegui came in, he put him on the bench. I guess he didn't think his head was right. Obviously, he'd been at Barca and stuff. And then obviously he's back now, and it's really interesting to see the reaction, because when he got the goal, and it was late, it was like 80th minute. All of the players on the team, all around him, all hugging him, like big pop from the players. So he's obviously like a dressing room favourite, which I thought really surprised me, because I thought, like, obviously being at Barca and probably wanting away and trying to manufacture a move, I didn't know if he would have that kind of support. But yes, he has been a player that has been improving week upon week since he got back in the team. He's now back in the starting lineup, and he put in a man of the match performance here. I mean, all energy, direct when he gets the ball, and in this game, crucially, an end product. So 1-0, talking about the Tottenham side of things, I mean, it just wasn't really much to talk about. I can only say it so much. If Tottenham get to play in your half, particularly around the edge of your box, Son, Kane, and Kulishevsky will kill you. They will kill you. They will murk you blood. You know what I mean? Like, they are so good at moving the ball around and creating space for each other and making runs, and so good at finishing, can do it from in the box, out the box. If you let them play there, they'll fuck you up, right? Like, real talk. But the problem is, if you have to win a battle in the centre of the park, or if things are a little bit hairy and you get pressed and Tottenham are boxed in, they can't win those games for some reason. It's not for some reason. I've told you the reasons a million times. There's not enough quality just in that midfield. The midfield needs an utter rebuild. Other than Kulishevsky, just get them all out for me. That is the big problem with Tottenham. They've been cruising, relying on like Son, and then obviously Son got injured for a bit. They've been relying on Kane's goals. There was all that up and down about whether Kane was going to leave or not before he got settled again. They've been relying on Kulishevsky, who's like their best attacking outlet, and the rest of them are just bums. Like, I mean, obviously Bentancur, when he plays, is like a thing, but like, he could survive in a rebuild for me. But other than that, I just think they've got like nothing. And so Wolves actually turns out, when you're talking about like Moutinho, Neves, Traore, obviously out wide, kind of playing up in the channel on the right side. When you've got like that, Jimenez, to say it properly, you're not going to get any time. They're going to dominate the game. They're going to run rings around you. Honestly, compared to Tottenham's midfield, like, give me fucking Neves. Neves walks into Tottenham's fucking midfield, like, easily, Yeah, just one of those games where it was always liable. Tottenham need Conte back. I still think they're going to hold on to the top 4 spot, but Liverpool breathing down their necks. And on that note, we can jump ahead in time. Liverpool, Man United. A prestige game. Man United coming into it off a high. First piece of silverware in 6 years. Ten Hag, the real deal. Just plaudits everywhere. Newspaper articles saying Ten Hag, the best manager since Sir Alex Ferguson. I agree with that. I believe that. Everybody's saying it. Casemiro, the god, the hero. Finally, he's got this team playing with pride and fucking fire. And Now they've got Liverpool, and yeah. Look, I talked about it on a live stream because I thought it was hilarious. But Roy Keane and Gary Neville thought on Sky Sports were talking to Souness and Carragher. You know, they've mixed it up, haven't they? 2 United players, 2 Liverpool players. Souness was saying, I think Liverpool are back. I've seen enough. And Gary Neville and Roy Keane are laughing. And they're thinking United's going to do a number on them. I think the whole world thought United were going to do a number on them. You know, I think we all agree the way this season's gone, Liverpool are nowhere near Manchester United now. But 7-0, I don't know what happened to United. Listen, if you score 7 goals in the Prem, you played well. But this is insane from United. This is one of the worst performances. I don't know if they had like fucking hangovers. I don't know if they just got themselves a little bit too arrogant. But it's a 7-0 where it's 1-0 at half-time. So here's what should happen. It's 1-0 at half-time. You get in. It's Ten Hag. It's the fucking testicle with eyes. He's going to fucking tear you apart like fucking Hellraiser. He's going to fuck you up. He does it. He's shouting. He's screaming. He's giving you a bollocking. Where's your reaction? You ship 6 goals in the second half. 6 goals. The back 4 was a disgrace. I didn't even see De Gea make a dive for some of these goals. I don't know what happened. And by the way, Bruno Fernandes, oh, we'll talk about him. I've said this repeatedly. Fernandes is a guy who, like, yeah, when you're going forward, when you're on top in the game, he's fantastic to have. When you need to dig deep, it's just not his style. It's not who he is. You have to be very careful about who you pair him with. One of the problems in the pre-Casemiro era is obviously, like, you've got Fernandes and Eriksen. There's nothing there, like, you know what I mean? Who's dominating the game? You maybe, like, pass your way out in the middle of the park, but no, maybe not. And Fernandes just didn't want a piece of this at all. I mean, Casemiro did what he could. Fred did what he could. Weghorst did what he could. The back 4 were incompetent. There was no outlet for Rashford. And Bruno Fernandes, this is the lowest ebb he's ever been. That is the worst performance he's ever turned in a Red Devil shirt, bar none. It's not even close. It's embarrassing. Now, I'm not going as far as some of the hacks, right? There's like Chris Sutton. Shut the fuck up, Sutton. What a mess. He said, like, Bruno Fernandes should never captain United again. Now, he might lose the armband. Ten Hag was furious after the game, as you can imagine. He called it unprofessional. That's what he said. He said the team was unprofessional in what they did. Because it did look like they gave up once they went 3-0 down. There's no excuse to ship 7. That team. None whatsoever. It is indefensible. But he's had an absolute dog shit game and his head's gone. Maybe not captain material. People are talking about him being dropped. People are never playing again. It's like, come on, man. Like, at the end of the day, like, Ten Hag's going to sort of... But maybe it might be a good thing in the grand scheme of things. I know it's not going to be, because it's going to stand the test of time forever as one of United's worst performances. It's the worst performance of the Ten Hag era. It's actually embarrassing how bad it was. But it's happened at a moment where there are enough games left and where United are still in the hunt. Now, I put them conservative with 20%. They can't... Now, it's obviously less than that, just probably mathematically, but I can't do math. The bottom line is, though, United are still in the title race. This doesn't change that perspective at all. It's just a dark, embarrassing day in United's history. All that means is Ten Hag's going to read him the riot act. Players are going to get swapped in and out. But remember, Ten Hag's been working miracles with his squad. This isn't a great United team. And he's just won a trophy. He'll turn it round. This isn't a problem. This isn't a crisis at United. It's one super fucking embarrassing game. And trust me, heads will roll. If Ten Hag actually does hold any of these individuals accountable, be under no illusion, they just won't play. He'll drop them. He'll mess them up. Go watch his interview. Like, he was livid. He was furious. He looks angry on his happiest day. He probably looked like that on his wedding day. Just that character, you know what I mean? But, like, end of the day, he was livid. Meanwhile, Liverpool, are they this good? No, of course they're not good enough like that. But finally, things started happening in the attacking sense. Their midfield that's looked so poor were able to basically play around the United midfield, which is rare. It's rarely where things go wrong for United, but it definitely went wrong here. It was a catastrophic failure in midfield. They were able to just play around them. For a change, every time the ball went up to Liverpool in the second half, they actually converted stuff. Like, they've had some things where XG to goals just hasn't even made sense this season, but this was the one where it did. And that was Gakpo. I think he's been a terrible signing overall, but he looked like a world-class striker in this game. Nunez, who, he's got a tendency to waste chances. didn't he? I mean, just everything you want from Núñez, really. Salah, we know how he's had problems this season. He's in the shadow of himself, just breaking records, 2 goals for him. Firmino, Bobby, he's going obviously soon. Great servant of the club. What a wonderful player and character he's been. And he rocked up with the last goal, and then like did a celebration where he was laughing so high pitched, like full hyena laugh. He got picked up on the mic. You could just hear him. Oh, the United fans! You should have seen it. And Klopp, obviously, massive shit-eating grin. 50% of his face, teeth, just fucking loving it. But no, Liverpool aren't back. You've still got problems. I mean, all of this is academic. Yeah, you have a 7-0 against United. Great story, right? Very cool story. But what's coming up next? You know what I mean? It's like it's away to Bournemouth, where it don't mean nothing if you lose there or get a draw there. Don't mean shit. After that, you know, what are the games have Liverpool got coming up? You know, it's like City. They've got City coming up. So all academic. Like, if you 7-0 United and then you go away to City and get 7-0 there, like, what are we talking about? And look, I'm just going to throw it in just at the end. We all wanted to talk about the 7-0, but all the Fulham fans keep messaging me. They lost to Brentford. 3-2. Brentford are on course for Europe. They're still doing it. This Brentford squad, you know, Brentford, Brighton, Fulham, they're all in the mix to get into the Europa. And this was one of those super unlucky games. Fulham play to the whistle. Here's what's blowing my mind. Here's what I really want to talk about. Where did they get this Solomon guy from? He's unbelievable. Like, he's just scoring goals for fun right now. He was doing it in the Cup. He's been doing it in the Prem. I mean, I really like Fulham overall as a team. I think Fulham have been revelatory. Like, I think I put them, like, bottom half of mid-table in my original predictions. They've been so much better than that. They've got some problems at the back. It's not amazing. I like Ream, but it's just about what they do when they're going forward. And Willian's fucking... I remember I had an argument with Davey. Regulars will know him, Arsenal fan. And I was saying Willian wasn't all that bad. And he said I was trolling him. And I sort of was a little... But I kind of also had a point. I just thought he was a bit maligned. You know, he's one of the most tenured Brazilians in the Premier League. There's no getting around that. I think he's like, you know, played at Chelsea, played at Arsenal. I think he's done great at Fulham. Like, you know, he used to come on as an impact sub a lot, but now he's played his way into the starting lineup. Pereira's been fucking sick. This Solomon's guy, like, he's fucking on fire. And, you know, Mitrovic hasn't got as many goals lately, but his work ethic is just unparalleled probably in the Premier League. So I've said it, like, I think, you know, Fulham have been like the true revelatory team, if you like, you know, Brighton maybe as well. But these are the games that they've really got to win, and I think Fulham, it's just come a little bit unstitched at a key moment. It's a shame because I think Silva is up there for manager of the year, but they might come out of this season with like nothing to show for it if they keep losing to like Brentford. Now, Brentford are great. Brentford are a great team. And that result puts them on like 38 points. It puts Brighton on 38 points. It puts Fulham on 39. That's like the super little interesting bit. Because Newcastle are only on 41, mind. So we can drop down the table. We'll struggle again in some of these games, no doubt in my mind. But Ivan Toney for Brentford again. It's going to be such a shame. Well, it's not a shame because he broke the fucking rules like an idiot. But it is going to be really bad for Brentford when he gets banned. I think he's playing with his heart on his sleeve now because he's trying to give everything to the Brentford cause before he does get banned. I think when he gets suspended, it's going to be a long, long time. I think he's gone for a while because there's no justifying for what he did. Everybody knows the rules. It sounds like I'm doing a fucking Dave Portnoy pizza review. But, you know, everyone knows the rules around gambling. Tony didn't just break it once or twice. He broke it hundreds of times. He's going to be banned for a while. I mean, like, you know, even if it waits until next season, it'd be catastrophic if he got banned this season. Seems they're taking their time with the investigation. If he gets banned next season, Brentford are going to really, really struggle without him because he's just instrumental and, like, a really, really good player and an England caliber striker for me. Like, he should be in the mix. He should have gone instead of Callum Wilson. That much is clear now. I mean, Callum Wilson's looked a bit bust since he got back. But yeah, unlucky here, 3-2 for Fulham. Great game of football. And Fulham, right, still in there for Europe, guys. It's not like I'm ignoring you. I see what you're doing. Don't worry. So there you go. That's Prem Review. We've done it. Let's get that. Chop that. Edit that. Get it out a week late. Soon there'll be more Prem games. I'll see you on the next Prem Review. Thanks for following the content. And then, as I said at the start, if you want to read some of my writing about sports, you can do that on my Substack. Get yourself across there. It's in the description. Love to have you. Been always a pleasure. See you next time.